forecasts of global warming, particularly in the last 2 years, have begun to come down. We're seeing the so-called sensitivity of temperature being reduced by 40% in the new climate models. That means we're going to live.
What the old climate models predicted.
The old climate models were too hot. That's finally being recognized.
All right, so it's 40% less, but that's if weather is worse, that's a problem.
If you look at hurricanes, tornadoes, these things really don't show the signals that they're supposed to.
And they haven't.
You know, there's this whole big thing about billion-dollar disasters. You've heard that. Billion-dollar disasters are going up. Well, what you have to do is you have to take the damage and adjust it for gross domestic product and inflation. And when you look at that, it simply has no trend whatsoever.
That more people spend more.
There's more stuff in the way of the weather.
All right, John, you don't buy all the scaremongering, but you are scared about parts of it.
Right, absolutely, because the ice sheets are melting. We've seen photographs of the polar ice cap diminishing year by year, decade by decade. Pat's right that there are variations within years. You can take a 7-year time frame or a 17-year time frame and get a different picture. But we've also reached a bit of a tipping point, or turning point, I should say, because we're now at a warming period when actually we should be entering the 80,000 years going toward the next ice age. Now, nobody cares about the next ice age, obviously, but the fact that the oceans are warmer, 0.8 of a degree Celsius, 1.5 Fahrenheit, and that the oceans are rising. New Jersey, New York's 14 inches higher than 100 years ago. And we just see the photographs of the Arctic ice cap disappearing, but then we go to Greenland, as Pat and I have been, and Antarctica, and we can see signs of increased melting for the long term, which will raise the ocean.
So, as your book says, a coming coastal crisis. Why a crisis? Why can't we just adjust?
Well, we can, and actually I think that's exactly what we need to do. We should slowly adjust. We should realize that after 6,000 years of stability, that sea level is going up, and we need to begin planning because it's going to have drastic catastrophic effects on our shorelines all over the world.
Pat, do you dispute this?
John, we've been adapting. Over half the sea level rise on much of the East Coast doesn't have anything to do with the water. It has to do with the fact that the land is sinking. So these 14-inch rises that you've seen in New Jersey, I think 18 inches at the southern end of Chesapeake Bay.
Over the past 100
years.
We haven't noticed them.
Exactly. You would not have noticed that unless somebody told you that it happened down there. The adaptation is a slow, steady thing. That's what people do.
You're shaking your head in disgust here.
Well, Pat's a great professional contrarian, and I've read his stuff for years. But let's be practical here. In Miami Beach, now there are streets there flooded during lunar high tide a couple of days a month. And the wheels of cars are actually rusting out in some neighborhoods because they're getting salt water on them regularly. Okay, now that's different than has been the case for 100 years.
What do you want to do about it?
We need to realize that it's happening because that means we need to slowly adjust our shorelines, our architecture, build up, set back, come up with technologies like the Dutch do, where they actually allow for storms to go through the ground floor of buildings.
So, Pat, I assume you don't dispute that, and I assume you don't dispute John's point about the melting ice in Greenland and the
wait a
Arctic.
minute. I certainly don't agree with him on Antarctica. Antarctica is the largest body of ice on Earth. 90% of the world's ice is in Antarctica. Computer models for the 21st century, if we're going to believe these things, they actually predict that Antarctica gains ice. Why? Because the ocean around Antarctica warms up a little bit. There's more water vapor in the air, and when it's converged over the continent, what do you think it falls as? Rain?
Snow.
No, it falls as snow. And the southern hemisphere ice is expanding.
John is saying no.
Antarctica is a little complicated to understand. It's the biggest.
It's all complicated.
Okay, but Antarctica is confusing because it looks all white. It looks the same. Pat's right. The East Antarctic part, 2/3 of the continent is growing because more moisture in the air from a warmer ocean goes up, and it's got to come down as rain or snow, and there it comes down as snow.
Okay.
So East Antarctica is getting thicker and has overcome the loss on West Antarctica until about 3 years ago. But Antarctica now is losing because there's some glaciers there that could slide into the ocean in a decade and cause some catastrophes.
All right, we're not going to solve this, but do either of you not drive a car or say we can do anything about this in terms of not causing global warming?
I go short on apocalypse futures. I have lived through 9 end-of-the-world environmental apocalypses, beginning with Silent Spring. And, we're still here, and I have a feeling this is just going to be one in a long series. I think ocean acidification will be its replacement. That's a prediction.
You got
John,
water.
you want to tax carbon. You want to